Hi everyone, welcome and welcome back to Gavin Reads It All. I have been terrified to do this list. I'm not the most well-versed fantasy reader in the world, so trying to put out a top 10 fantasy series list has always been quite daunting because I always worry, I'm not really adding anything new to the conversation or anything like that. But I just thought I would do this now because one of my main reading goals this year and hopefully for the next few years is to really tackle more fantasy series so that I can look back on this list and see how different it gets as the years go on. Because I love fantasy, it's one of my favorite genres, and yet I haven't really read enough of it in my opinion. So in this video, I will go through my top 10 fantasy series, and it is a bit of a mix of like children's, middle grade, young adult, and even manga. So I do hope that's okay. But I also have a top 10 fantasy series that I want to read because I can just imagine I will get so many comments down below. And please do. Please leave all the comments down below giving me recommendations for fantasy series to read next. But I do have a top 10 of what I want to read myself. So that is why they're not in the top 10 list, because I haven't read that series yet. Or I maybe have just read one book. Although saying that, one series in my top 10, I've already read one book. But I loved it so much, so it's there. So grab yourself a hot drink, like the video if you enjoy, subscribe if you haven't already for more fantasy stuff, and I'll get into the top 10 series that I want to read first. Now, I feel like I have to mention this first, because I feel like everyone's going to be expecting this in my top 10 list, but that's the Cosmere. I haven't even read the Cosmere yet. I've read The Final Empire years and years ago by Brandon Sanderson, and I really enjoyed it, but I never continued. However, this year, I'm challenging myself to read all of the Cosmere, and I'm doing a series called Gavin Reads All the Cosmere, and I'm going to do 2 books per episode, and they're going to be totally in depth, going through spoilers of those books that I read in that video. So this series will be getting read over the next couple of years. I imagine it might take me a little while to do, but I did a lot of research for other people's top 10 fantasy series on YouTube, and Brandon Sanderson always seems to make it in people's top 10s. And so I thought, you know what, let's stop beating around the bush. Let's just get straight into Mr. Sanderson this year. Another one, I have read the first book twice. I am doing a book club for it at the minute, so I am going to be reading more of the series very, very soon. But that is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. I really enjoyed the first book, and I'm looking forward to reading books 2, 3, and 4 for this book club that I'm doing. We're reading the books every 2 months, so I'll be reading book 2 in March. And I anticipate that this might end up being in my top 10 just because of how much I really connected with the characters in this book. And I thought the story was, while it wasn't the most fast-paced or anything like that, it has so much potential for so much growth and so much intrigue as the series goes on. And I love the writing style too, so I feel like me and John Gwynne will get on famously. Oh, one that I don't have just yet, but I did get a notification to say that the Broken Binding have dispatched it, and that is Malazan by Steven Erikson. So I did buy the first 3 Malazan books from Broken Binding. They look so beautiful, don't they? They look so gorgeous, and I've been so scared to read that series, but as soon as it popped up, I was like, you know what, I feel like it would be such a fun challenge if every time Broken Binding send the 3 books, I read all 3 of them back to back and again do a reading vlog for them. And so that's what I'm planning to do with Malazan, and I'm terrified. I'm so scared. I don't know why it is. I think it's because it's such a long series. I love pushing myself, okay? I love pushing myself. I love challenging myself with brand new stories, intimidating reads, and I always feel so accomplished when I do that. So Malazan will definitely be getting read in batches of 3 every time the Broken Binding release the editions of it. So keep an eye out for those too. Oh, another one that I really want to read is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I am currently going through Stephen King's entire catalogue from beginning to end in pretty much chronological order. I am going to wait until I get to, is it Bleak House or something? I'm going to wait until I get to that book before I binge all of The Dark Tower, because I'm currently doing my Gavin Reads All the King series, so I cover 4 books per episode, and so I'm waiting for the right time to like binge all of The Dark Tower at once. I'm hoping to get through all of the other Dark Tower books and references that are in other books that I'm reading, because I know there are some books I think that have references to The Dark Tower or kind of connect to it. So I want to get through all of those first and then binge The Dark Tower, all of the books. I think there's like 7 or 8. The kicker is I used to own all of these, and then I unhauled them like, what, 5 years ago or something, and then I've been on the biggest Stephen King kick since like mid last year. So yes, I am kicking myself for unholding those books. I will have to buy them again. And I love Stephen King, so I think I'm going to end up enjoying the series a lot. Oh, the next is the Brittany series by Evan Winter. I think the first book is called The Rage of Dragons. I love anything to do with dragons, honestly, and I kept seeing this series pop up on a lot of other booktubers' top 10 fantasy lists. So I was like, oh, you know, this is the one that I have heard like the least about. I would love to give it a go. And I still don't really know too much about it myself, but I think it's only a trilogy so far anyway. And I believe it started out being self-published, and I think it got traditionally published afterwards, or it might still be self-published. Nothing wrong with that at all. I can't wait to read more self-published fantasy. But yeah, I'm pretty much a sheep. So I like to follow other people when they read things. So that's the only reason I can think of why I want to read that one so far. I need to look up more about like what it's actually about and things, but I'm sure I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. It's on lots of people's top 10 lists. we might as well give it a go. The sixth series that I really want to read is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I have read The Assassin's Apprentice. I read this a few years ago, and then I didn't continue on, which is a recurring theme for me. I try a first book, the series intimidates me, so I end up going to different books. But I really enjoyed what I read, and I have friends who have cried their hearts out over this series, like the entire Realm of the Elderlings. It is such a beast, but I do anticipate enjoying it, especially since I really did enjoy Assassin's Apprentice, and I did really like the main character Fitz from the beginning, essentially. So I feel like if we can continue having such great character explorations and a really intriguing plot thread, then I'm going to really enjoy the rest of it. It's just very big, and it would be a journey, but one that I would be proud to take. Okay, the next two series, I have read the first book of these, and I really enjoyed them, so it's just a case of getting on track and reading the rest of them. So firstly, I do have Dungeon Crawler Call by Matt Dinnerman. I read this only last month, and it made my best books of 2024 list. It was so good. So I need to get the rest of the series. I'm going to do a totally spoiler-filled reading vlog for them all, and I just know I'm going to have a fun time because I had the best time reading the first book in the series, like so much. Also, you're probably going to realize I'm not going to really talk too much about like what these series are about, just like why I want to read them and why I love them kind of thing. I feel like you already know what all of these series are going to be about that I'm going to talk about, and if not, I might give you like little context clues. But with Dungeon Crawler Call, it's like everywhere at the minute on BookTube, and it's been around for a while too, but I'm only getting into it now and I can't be happier. The next one is Red Rising by Piers Brown. I did read this one. Now it's been about 2 years, so I would like to reread this and then continue the series. I really did like the first book. I kind of struggled a little bit to get into it at first, but I feel like it's one of those ones where it will most likely get better as it goes on, and I already own books 2 and 3, so I should probably read it, to be honest. Okay, I did have Dune for the next one that I wanted to read, but I think that's more sci-fi, so I've put that one down. I've replaced it with the Gentleman Bastard series. I almost forgot that I did really love and enjoy this one when I read it a few years ago. I haven't continued the series just yet, but some of my friends absolutely adore this series, and it's one of their favorites of all time. And I love the atmospheric writing of this. If you know me at all, you will know I'm a very like detail-driven reader. I love reading about atmospheric places and descriptions and things like that. I love it when an author can like build a scene, and I feel like Scott Lynch definitely could build the scene. And oh my god, there was some like twists and turns of this that I was kind of shocked at, and I actually got really invested in the character stories too, and it was only the first book. So this is definitely going to be a priority. I can't believe I almost forgot to include this on this list, but there's so many. Like there's even more beyond this list that I want to read. It's just like, how do I fit a top 10 TBR a fantasy series? But no, The Lies of Locke Lamora was so good. Very excited to continue. And then lastly, Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I've never read a Terry Pratchett book before in my life. Never. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that weird? So I really would like to try my first Discworld books this year. I would love to try and do, again, like a reading vlog for it. Have you noticed I love doing reading vlogs? I just love them. And so I really want to try and do that. I kind of want to go in order, but there's so many recommended orders to go in that it's kind of hard to know where to begin. But there are so many videos on YouTube that are so helpful with that. So I will do my research, I'll do my due diligence, and I will start Discworld at some point. I might not be able to finish the series or anything anytime soon, but I would just love to make a good start on it, just to give it a try, see if it's something I would like. And I just feel like Terry Pratchett is just so beloved in this community, so I would really love to honor him and give it a go. If you're wondering where The Wheel of Time is, I did read the first book and I really enjoyed it, but I did a really stupid thing where I read the first book and the last book for a video challenge, and so I've already read the last book of that series. However, I will say, I don't think it really spoils anything for me. Like, I read fantasy for the journey. I love the journey so much. I love getting from like A to B. I love that kind of story. And so knowing what happens at the end, I kind of don't care. I think I might still end up reading the Wheel of Time books, but it's not a priority for me. But I did enjoy the first book. I thought Robert Jordan did such a good job with that first book. And again, like, it was quite descriptive, and I really enjoyed that, actually. I did like the descriptions. But come on, that's like an undertaking in itself. And to be honest, like, I read the last book, and there's not really too much that I remember beyond certain character fates. And the story, it was kind of exciting because I won't say too much because of spoilers, but I feel like most fantasy stories just have like battles at the end. Like there's a war and like there's a battle at the end. So like, it didn't really matter that I read the last book, okay? Like, I know I get so much hate for it. I really, really do. And I understand, I totally understand. But honestly, take it from me, it hasn't ruined the Wheel of Time experience for me. I would still go back and read the rest of them, but reading the last book before books 2 to 13, I think, isn't really that big of a deal for me, okay? Okay, now we're getting in my top 10 fantasy series of all time. Again, I'm so scared. I'm so scared to share this. So at number 10, and it is based off just one book alone so far. That's how much I loved this book. But that is Hierarchy by James Islington. This was my favorite, like, new to me book of last year. My favorite book was actually a reread of a fantasy series that's coming up. But other than that reread, this was my best book of 2024. I just freaking loved it. I ate it up from beginning to end. This got me really back into that fantasy mood, and I love it when a book can kind of drag me back into a genre. And James had such a way of fragmenting the story to keep it interesting, so it felt like I was reading like different books at certain points. But the twist of this one was so fantastic. I was gagged, I was gooped by the end of this story. I love academy settings as well. I love the sort of trials and tribulations that our main character went through. This is a bit of an undercover story as well, so if you enjoy stories like that, you will, I feel, also love this. And yeah, we have Viz, who goes to an academy undercover, and he needs to like uncover some sinister things. It's one of those stories that flips things on its head by the end, and I just can't wait to reread this when the second book comes out. I feel like it was so good. It was genuinely so good. So it's already in my top 10. But again, like, remember, I haven't read the most fantasy series out there. I'm still quite a newbie. I'm still quite a noob, so I apologize if this list is shit to you. But no, I freaking loved it, okay? I loved it so much. Okay, next is a middle grade series, and that is the Supernatural Investigation series by B.B. Alston. The first book is Amari and the Night Brothers. I have read the first two. The third book came out not too long ago. I'm a little bit scared to read it because my tastes have changed quite dramatically in the like 2 to 3 years since the second book came out, and I'm not really that big of a middle grade reader anymore, but I can't tell you like how much I fell in love with the first two books of the series. This is a little bit Men in Black-esque. We follow Amari, whose brother goes missing, and she ends up getting invited to join the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, and through that she is trying to investigate her brother's disappearance. And yeah, it's very Men in Black, but it was just such a riveting time. The first and the second book, I don't know how B.B. Alston did it, but he managed to make the second book just as compelling and amazing as the first book. He also did a good job of keeping you on your toes by the third act of the first book, Amari and the Night Brothers. And sometimes I think, gosh, for a middle grade, you're actually going to go there? And it's just filled with magic, different creatures, weird creatures. I love the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. It feels almost like a school setting kind of story as well, which seems to be a bit of a recurring theme for me. I do kind of like a good school setting in my fantasies. But yeah, Amari is just one of a kind. Amari is literally one of a kind. But I'm still very scared to read the third book, just in case I don't love it as much as the first two. I don't want this to drop out my top 10 anytime soon. At number 8 is Witch Hat Italia by Kamomi Shirahama. I only just recently caught up to this series. I have been reading it for my Gavin Reads All the Manga channel. I do have a second channel dedicated to reading manga, and I just caught up with the series. I'm up to volume 13, and it has just blown me away. You go into it thinking it's going to be a cozy, nice time, but oh my gosh, the implications of the themes of this story and the messages that it says about our own society. And I love the dismantling of that through our main character, Coco, who is such a fantastic protagonist. I love the fact that she's a protagonist who isn't perfect, she makes mistakes, and you actually see her learn from those mistakes. The magic of this world is so inventive and intriguing. I love the fact that it incorporates art, and it just highlights the importance of art in storytelling and fiction and fantasy. This does feel a little bit like a love letter to fantasy lovers, but this story has definitely gotten more darker, it's more intriguing now, and I do think we're on the cusp of a world-changing plotline. So this is the first manga series in my top 10. It won't be the last, but I genuinely wish more fantasy stories could be like this. And again, I apologize if you think putting manga series in this list is cheating. It is what it is. In number 7 is the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. The last time I read these was in 2019, and I'm going to be doing a reread of them this year at some point. I'm talking about Game On. I am talking about all these fantasy series I'm going to be starting and rereading this year, and I'm just like, okay, Gav, put your money where your mouth is. I loved this the first time I read it, and it isn't really to do with the fact that I loved the TV show so much, because I did. I loved the TV show up to a certain point, and so I ended up checking out the book series, and I just loved it even more. The fact that Westeros and everything around it feels so real and believable. George R.R. Martin has a way of writing things that makes you feel like you're reading something that actually happened. These characters feel more real than my own mother. Like, that's how good George R.R. Martin is at writing characters. At least I think my mum's real. And because we have so many different POVs, you never have a boring moment, in my opinion. You might get bored at certain points, sure. But I feel like when you appreciate the characters and what they're doing and all of their goals, because every single character feels like they have a goal, and I love a series where every character feels important in a way. You do get some that are more important than others, sure, but I hate it when a series has so many filler characters that you don't really need to care about, you don't really need to keep your eye on because they're just like there for fodder. But this one, it feels like everyone has a purpose, everyone has their place in this world. I can't remember which book I preferred out of all of them, so that is why it's going to be so amazing rereading the series. I'm genuinely so excited to do that. I just want to do it now. In at number 6 is Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. I actually read the first 2 books years and years and years ago, because of the movies. I actually really enjoyed the movies when they first came out. I don't as much these days, but they were entertaining, okay? When they came out, they were so entertaining. And plus, I had the biggest crush on Logan Lerman, okay? And then I ended up reading the entire Percy Jackson series for a reading vlog a couple of years ago. I will link it down below if you want to check it out. It's filled with spoilers. And I was so engrossed. I was so taken by how much this series holds up to this day. Like, it's been, what, 20 years? It's 2025 now. It's been 20 years since this book came out, The Lightning Thief. And it still holds up. It still holds up. It's still so brilliantly engaging, still so fun. I love an underdog being character, who we also get in Coco with Richard Atelier. But with Percy, there's so much going against him. You know, he seems like one of those teenagers that you kind of want to just dismiss because he seems to be like too much trouble, or you don't want to give him the time of the day. But he turns out to be a hero, and he's just like so incredible and so fun to follow. I love his friends. I love the friends he makes. I love the different stories in each book too, and how they sort of come together by the end too. And you do get new characters every now and then too, who you also kind of want to follow. And you do in the different spin-off and continuation series that Rick Riordan has done, which I do still need to read. I will do it eventually. I seem to recall the third book maybe being my favourite of this series. And this has so much rereadability potential too. It doesn't matter how many times you read it. I do feel like every single time you read it, you'll discover something new. So when I reread the first two books, I was like, damn, I really forgot so much that happened. And it also made me appreciate the books way more than the movies as well. I still haven't seen the TV show yet. I hope it does a good job adapting it. But I do love Greek mythology when it's done right, and this series does it right. And number 5 is The Edge Chronicles by Chris Riddell and Paul Stewart. This is my original copy from the 90s, and it was one of my favorite childhood series growing up. I loved it so much. And you know what? I don't like doing comp titles, but I would have compared this as like Game of Thrones, but for kids. And it's not even really just for kids, because some of it crosses a line. There is this weird person in one of the sequels who like murders people and like eats their toes and things. It's honestly fucked up. And I was reading that when I was like 9 or 10 or something. But no, this is such a vast, amazing world. It's kind of split into trilogy. So this is the start of the Twig trilogy, and it's the one that I would recommend starting with as well. There is the Quinn saga, and that comes before this one in terms of like timeline. But I do genuinely still think you should start here Beyond the Deep Woods, because oh my god, like it's such an engaging and amazing story. It gives you that nostalgic feeling of an amazing quest, adventure story that you would read like way long ago. And oh my gosh, even then, like this book as well has something so messed up. I cannot believe I read this as a child. You know what I mean? It's so good. And there's like different politics as well going on in this world too, that you kind of get more of in, I guess, the Quinn saga than you would in this one. But again, like that's why I feel like it was almost like Westeros in a way, but like for kids/teens. I can't praise the series enough. I did start rereading the series and I was doing videos for them, but then time escaped me and I didn't continue. I kind of want to do it again. I want to do the entire Edge Chronicles again because I love it so much, and there are some books in the series I haven't read yet myself, and this was my childhood favourite series essentially. How have I not read more? I mean, to be fair, there's like 13 books now, and they kept coming out as I was growing up, so I kind of just like grew out of like reading a little bit for a while. But no, I have so many fond memories of reading this when I was a child, and I always love when a book has illustrations too throughout. It just makes it that much more of an incredible experience. See what I mean? Like, this is terrifying. Look at this. Come on, like that's kind of scary. Even as an adult, it's kind of scary. And number 4 is the second manga series appearing on this list, and that is Berserk by Kentaro Miura, R.I.P. What an absolute amazing illustrator. Quite possibly my favorite illustrator of all time. And let me tell you, I was a little bit unsure that I would end up loving this as much as I did when I first started. But let me tell you, that Golden Age arc, oh my god, I hadn't read anything like it by then or since. Just absolutely gripping and gory. And Guts as a protagonist, oh my gosh, he has layers. It's so great to delve into the themes of this and to see character connections and how they tie into the big world and the big picture of this, because there is so much to unpack with Berserk. It's not just a gory, violent series. In fact, I would argue the opposite. Yes, there's violence, yes, there's gore, but there's so much more to it. And I love a good medieval feeling fantasy too. I haven't read too much like it. I would love to read more like Berserk, but in like a novel format, because I love the atmosphere of it. I love the way it feels in that medieval setting. And I do think Griffith is one of the best antagonists I've ever seen in my life. He elicits such conflicted emotions in me. And don't get me wrong, I am not a Griffith sympathizer. Do not get me twisted, okay? I am still against that man. However, I love following him. I love reading about him. I love a villain, an antagonist with so much meat that just highlights the hero's journey even more. And this is such an epic hero's journey. And it isn't even over yet. It isn't finished. And I'm kind of scared to see how it finishes. But goddamn, I love this. And I just freaking love the first panel as well. I've always said guts can rearrange my guts too. In at number 3 is my favourite middle grade series of all time, and that is Frost Heart by Jamie Littler. This is also fantastically illustrated by the author too, but this, if you had been around 2019 to 2021 Gav when these books were coming out, so it's just a trilogy. When these books were coming out, oh my god, I didn't shut up about them. I pushed them down everyone's throats as well. I even named both of my cats after characters from this. That's how much I love it. But again, I don't like doing comp titles or anything, but I feel like if you're a bit of a fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, I feel like you might enjoy this. This does follow Ash, and he is a song weaver, so that means he can speak to the Leviathans. And Leviathans are monsters that live in the Snow Sea. However, it's a forbidden power, so not many people know about it. And when the Fire Stronghold that Ash lives in find out about it, he gets kicked out. So he joins the crew of the Frost Heart, and they go from stronghold to stronghold. And it's like the best epic fantasy for, you know, a middle grade audience, but I do feel like you would still enjoy it as an adult. I know I did. I loved it so much. It has so much imagination and so much great whimsy to it that I just, I can't recommend it enough. It has actual stakes. There's an actual like death in the first book. It feels like it's beyond age range, and that's why I love this series so much. It feels like it does a little bit more with it. Ash also has to find his parents too, and that journey in itself is such a, I don't want to spoil anything again, but it's such an interesting and like, it's so good. It's so good. One of the best world building of a series as well, because it feels a little bit dystopian. You do have the Snow Sea that separates all the strongholds, and with the Leviathans living in the Snow Sea, it's so dangerous trying to cross like between places. And again, like the stakes of it just feels so fantastic that I will continue to recommend this to this day. And it's only 3 books, so why not? Okay, in second place, I honestly feel like you guys are gonna hate me. In second place, The Lord of the Rings. I love The Lord of the Rings so much. My experience with The Lord of the Rings is enhanced by the fact that I read this physically while listening to the audiobook by Annie Serkis, and I stayed in a replica Shire house, like a little Hobbit house, while I did that too. I had a reading vlog reading The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in a Shire house, and I was wearing this too. I'm a bit of an outfit repeater, what can I say? And it was the best reading experience I've ever had. And it just made me love this series even more. Like, I love the films as well. I love the films so much. I've loved them for a long time. And I did read The Lord of the Rings years ago, but I reread them last year, and I just had this newfound love and appreciation for them. And I had the best time reading it. I don't need to explain what it's about, because everyone knows what the series is about. In fact, I saw this in a lot of people's top 10 lists. I even saw people's comments as well saying, oh god, Lord of the Rings is so boring. Okay, I still freaking love it. I think it's fantastic. I love the language. I love the writing style. It makes me feel smart. Okay, it makes me feel so smart. I feel like, again, the story is just so iconic. I love the quest element of it. I love trying to get that ring to Mordor. I love Frodo and Sam so much, and I love their connection, and I love characters, and I love everything about it, okay? I just love it. Well, maybe apart from the songs. I don't love the songs. Tom Bombadil can Tom Bombadil, in my opinion. But what J.R.R. Tolkien did with this series, with this world, with Middle-earth, is just so phenomenal. I could not imagine being in the head of that man. It's too powerful. It is way too powerful. And I'm actually rereading The Lord of the Rings at the minute as well for a different book club. So I'm going to be rereading this month. Cannot wait. Cannot wait to reread it. It's so good. Oh my god, I just love it. Oh, I just love it. This would be the book that I would take to a desert island with me. Genuinely. So then my number 1 fantasy series of all time. I'm literally shaking. I don't know if I want to show you. It is One Piece by Ichiro Oda. I know it's a manga, but if I tell you this is my favorite story of all time, period, would that make a difference? I love this series so much, and I only started reading it 2.5 years ago. And I binged as much as I possibly could as a content creator with other videos and stuff that I had to do around it. And I had the best time. I love Luffy so much. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. I love all of the Straw Hats. The Straw Hat crew are some of my favorite characters of all time too. These stories, I love anything pirate related, okay? I love pirate adventures. So the idea of going from like island to island, getting crewmates to begin with, solidifying them as fantastic characters, going off onto an even more epic journey in the second half of this story, and these islands and the people that they meet, the foes that they have to face, and the intricate storyline as well that was planted from volume 1. There's so much going on with this series. It's so hard to keep your head wrapped up in everything. It's so easy to forget things. It's so easy to miss things, which is why I'm also going to try and start rereading this year too. But there's so much foreshadowing that was made like 20 years ago that is still relevant today. It just feels like a series that you have to read before it ends in a way. Like, it's not just the fact that I love One Piece so much, it's the fact that I love being part of this fandom and being part of this world where we still have new One Piece chapters coming out and people are still clamoring to find out what the One Piece is and all of that. So it just feels like it isn't just the fact that One Piece is my favorite fantasy series of all time. This is my favorite moment in time right now. Before One Piece ends, I just love the fact that I started this, I caught up with this, although I am a few chapters behind. I will be catching up very soon on my manga channel. Just can't get enough of this. So much richness with the characters and their backstories. Do you know how many times I've cried during reading the series? I've cried more times reading One Piece than I have anything else in my entire life. And this is just quintessential adventure. It's adventure. It's having fun while you're on your adventure. It's questing. It's going from place to place. It's seeing new places and meeting new people. And it's just, I love stories like that so much. So yeah, this isn't just my favorite fantasy series of all time. This is my favorite story of all time, okay? You're probably booing me right now. You're probably disliking the video right now as well. I don't care. Engagement is engagement. But yeah, those were my top 10 fantasy series of all time, as well as the top 10 fantasy series that I want to start or continue. I do hope you enjoyed. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all the comments down below. I would love to know what your top 10 fantasy series of all time is. And if you don't want to do a top 10, top 5 is fine, or even just your favorite fantasy series of all time. If you don't want to leave that long a comment, that's fine. I just want to talk to you about it, but please keep it respectful too. This is all my opinion. This is so subjective, so please do keep it respectful. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting my channel. If you'd like to join my Patreon, then the link is in the description box. But yeah, I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye.